drafts of personal and professional goals. Yet it wasn't until face-to-face with death that I wrote down how I aspired to live my life. When falling off the edge of life, in my case, there was unambiguous, distraction-free clarity on what really matters. In my moment of certain death, the only thing that mattered was how I lived my life. The things that were achieved, accomplished, and accumulated were irrelevant. And wow, am I ever grateful to have another chance to improve on the report card for when my life on Earth actually ends. What mattered and was important to me was only about how I lived. My attention span for lessons from the countless individuals with careers like mine has been saturated. However, the edge of life was eye-opening enough to me that it compelled me to share the revelation. To be clear, I am not a role model, nor do I know the right path. For the most part, we have free will, and we should exercise it for our own agenda. We have the opportunity to customize the tenets by which we decide to lead our own lives for ourselves and our families, to avoid a rudderless or manipulated life by creating our own code of conduct of sorts as knights had in the Middle Ages. Knights are well documented as warriors who lived noble lives. History books hail their exemplary standards of bravery, strength, skill, courtesy, honor, and gallantry toward women. That's all great, if true, though a tad heavily overweight on physical combat. But that's history. Good news is that we have so many modern-day heroes in our communities from which to draw inspiration. First responders, caregivers, humanitarian aid workers, teachers, medical professionals, spiritual leaders, their collective code is humbling. Can a personalized code of conduct serve a purpose in the modern world? I think so. Unlike a millennium ago, there's no chivalric code displayed in a grand banquet room to guide us. The structures that have provided for a personal behavioral GPS are being drowned out in modern-day society. Living a deliberate life will almost assuredly improve the likelihood that we achieve our desired destination. And that will lead to a life of fulfillment, happiness, purpose, and meaning. So, I studied my experiences to understand the principles and values that I aspire to and that have contributed to my resilience. I've come up with 32 that matter to me and have laid them out in the chapters that follow. They fit within my philosophical and spiritual frameworks. More than anything, across every tenet that I have defined for myself for the life that I aspire to is about willpower in trying to adhere to them. It's up to you to come up with your own tenets. It's up to you to adhere to them. I've used personal experiences to bring my tenets to life and introduced them chronologically for the most part as I experienced them with an exception. In my life, I've had my share of near-death experiences. So I'll begin and end with a couple of those moments to highlight the importance of considering creating your own code of conduct sooner rather than later. And while I have failed from time to time at every one I've selected for myself, that does not negate the value of defining a personal code of conduct, nor the nobility of the pursuit. Chapter 1. Bravery. On September 11, 2001, I arrived at my office in New York City around 7 o'clock in the morning as usual. My office was in the World Financial Center complex. Our building was 51 stories high, the tallest of the 4 buildings in the complex, and had over 2 million square feet of space. It's a building with a pyramid-shaped roof and was connected to the North Tower of the World Trade Center by a pedestrian bridge. It is now known as 200 Vesey Street. We had 5,200 of our colleagues in this building, which we shared with American Express. We also had 618 people in the North Tower of the World Trade Center, 400 people in One World Financial Center, and another 1,200 people across the Hudson River at 101 Hudson in Jersey City. My office had floor-to-ceiling windows and faced south. Directly across from my office was Jim Rosenthal, the firm's head of strategy. To the right of his office was Dick Fold's office, the chairman and CEO. At 8:46 a.m., my executive admin, Marna Ringel, screamed. She ran from her cubicle in the center aisle into Jim's office and put her hands on her mouth. Jim looked at her, looked up at the North Tower of the World Trade Center, and went back to work. I walked into Jim's office and looked up and saw thick black smoke coming from a very high floor. I glanced at Jim. He had his